All right, we're about to get live. 1 second, I'll tell you when. We are live.
Hey, Kevius.
Hi.
How's it going?
Who are you folks? I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm here with a group in Philmont, New York. I'm Chris Hewitt. I'm the publisher of LIVElihood, a monthly publication that reaches 25,000 readers in Columbia counties. And I'm the director of the Hudson Valley Current, our nonprofit organization that
Not sure if you can hear me, Chris. Is still there?
Yeah. Hey, Kevius.
There you go. It just reboot. We lost connection a bit there. There's a lag.
It's Linda, that she's in the waiting room.
Okay, there we go.
I think my hotspot's good with him. So I was just saying, Kevius, if you can introduce yourself and then let everyone know who Linda is, you can move along.
There we go. Hi. So nice to meet you folks via URL. I'm Kivius. I'm an econ student here at Bard, and I'll be working with the Hudson Valley Current this summer. And I got the chance to meet Linda, who's an amazing developer at Hawthorne. How are you?
She's in development.
We're
Got it.
There you go.
Hi.
So Linda Park is a manager of development, which is also called fundraising at Hawthorne Valley Association.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us. And Linda will be talking with us about Hawthorne Valley, not only a Waldorf school K-12, but also a 900-acre biodynamic farm and a farm store called the Current. Linda, do you want to talk about the Current or Hawthorne at all?
In Current, well, in what sense? That around the farm store and our goals for our wish for the Current?
About a little history of Hawthorne.
Well, Hawthorne Valley was founded almost 50 years ago in 1974. We're a farm and an educational institution. And at the moment, it includes almost 10 different initiatives that are all part of an umbrella association called Hawthorne Valley Association. And Chris, as you mentioned, it includes the school, a farm store, the farm, summer camp programs, overnight educational programs through the year, research on, hi Roxanne, farmscape ecology program. So yeah, it's a very active place. And we're also in green markets in New York City and around Columbia County.
Beautiful. And Roxanne Wilkins just arrived. She lives in Philmont. Hey, Roxanne.
Just came back.
Linda knows Roxanne through Hawthorne. I met Roxanne when Nathaniel, who's over here, he'll be in the camera soon. He's the founder and director of Free Columbia. Free Columbia is a current member also. And when Nathaniel approached me about local currency and starting a community currency in Columbia County, he had a group of interns through Free Columbia, and Roxanne was working with the interns, and we created a piazza event in Kingston. Piazzas are throughout Italy where people come together. Nobody puts up a poster about piazza. Nobody says, show up at 5, there'll be wine. Everybody knows you show up at 5. So we did some research about the components of community that bring people together, and we found food, typically wine or a nice drink, flowing water, maybe a fountain or a river, a fire, lounge, and a nearby restaurant so you can actually watch others eat. So all we did was put the components of community gatherings together, and Nathaniel is a puppeteer. He brought his puppets, we had musicians, and we gave free wine, free bread, and free olive oil. It was great. The point was community. We didn't even put posters up. We were like, come on, there's a piazza. Come on down. It was a beautiful night. So Nathaniel, introduce yourself in Free Columbia, and also, because Linda only has until 2:15,
okay,
lead it into how you met Linda, please.
sure. So actually, so Chris already mentioned how I got connected with the current. I have been running with another artist named Laura Summer, a program at Hawthorne Valley Association for almost 12 years called Free Columbia. We had a research project focused on local economies and local currencies a couple of years ago. That's how I met Chris. And Linda, who I'm so glad to know, also I'm just so grateful. She actually serves on the Free Columbia board. So we are compatriots in a number of fronts working together. So yeah, and I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Roxanne, you say you just got back into town?
No, I just got back here. I was here earlier.
Oh, cool.
I'm one. Yeah.
Well, Nathaniel has a wood-fired pizza oven. And Linda, before you go in 3 minutes, I'm just really excited that you'll be getting a portion of your salary in current. I get 25% of my salary paid in current. And we just created instructions on how any company can pay people in currents, whether you use paychecks or a local payroll company.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about why you're choosing to do that?
Well, for many reasons. I mean, one, I firmly believe we need some sort of parallel economy. I mean, parallel economies are happening all the time. You know, we're bartering and we're trading and we're sharing resources. And so I want to support that. Also, I do think that we just need to diversify. And so I want to support, you know, any kind of experiment that way. And I think there's a lot of potential. I'd like to see current continue to grow, and as I love the idea that it's generative, so that the more people who use it, the more we can support one another and create possibilities to support and share resources on a wider scale, separate from the dollar-backed or the bank-backed currency. So that's why I want to be more a part of it. Also, I think we, I mean, not to get too political, but you know, we don't know where things are going to go in the future. And what we do know is that currently this structure, this economic system that we've all been sort of pegged to is showing all sorts of vulnerabilities in a way that many of us may have guessed, or you've sensed it, or, you know, Nathaniel, you and your group have studied it and really looked at it. Chris as well. Akivius, you're like in it, you know, in some ways. I mean, we're all in it. But so what I do think that is that that we're going to have to look at alternatives again. And it's hopeful to me that this is a groundswell, and this is a community-based initiative, and not coming from the top down or from an exterior structure. So lots of positives and potentials around it.
Beautiful. It's a pleasure to
I want to
work
just make one note.
Yeah.
You had asked how Nathaniel and I met, and I want to just bring this up because several years back, I want to say it's almost now 6 years ago or 7, Nathaniel, Laura, and a group of artists, I guess, around Free Columbia hosted a conference called Free Culture.
Yeah.
And that was an impetus for me to pay attention to what Free Columbia was doing, because fundamentally it raises this question about one of the most important aspects of being human, of living in community, how we raise our children. That's culture. And this points to the economic system that right now culture is kind of embedded in. And I love this idea of how do we extricate that? How do we continue to support and have culture thrive without it being beheld by these economic factors? So anyway, here we are. And anyway, I wanted to do a little shout out on that because that is my big connection with Nathaniel, is this idea of freeing culture.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, love working with all of you. And just this morning, my wife and I were talking about how money may dry up, and that is traumatizing. It's a little bit scary, but nothing changed. We're still here. We're still valuable. And
Yeah.
money represents did not change. So
Right.
we're here to help each other thrive and find abundance. And I can't wait to see you at the pizza parties, because we're going to be organizing monthly pizza parties.
Great. I look forward to it. It looks delicious. I'm sorry I can't be there.
We can save you a piece, Linda.
Okay. Cold pizza's great. Pizza's always good. Yeah.
In the future,
I'll deliver it to you.
Okay.
in the future, it'll be during the evening so that everyone can.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Hi.
Bye.
So, Kivius, would you like
There
to
you
take
go.
us to the next
Yeah,
stage?
so I actually want to pick up off of that topic of connecting the culture to the economy, and more about the research that you found in local communities, because as many people know, like, economics is considered a social science, right? But in our current economy, we realize that society or culture gets the backhand. So I want to know kind of like, and that's where the local currency fits in, is saying, hey, like, we recognize that there are value in these cultures that the current, economic makeup of our country doesn't address. So I want to know, where do you feel that social element had been taken out of economics in maybe a previous history in your experience in Columbia County?
Beautiful. I just realized, because Roxanne said, who are you? This is Kivius Avery. He's
Hi, Roxanne.
This is our livelihood news show, so it's more than just a Zoom call. This is a live show every Friday at 2. Livelihood News represents our publication, Livelihood, that reaches 25,000 readers every month in Ulster and Columbia counties. It's the publication that is the voice of the Hudson Valley Current. So that was an amazing question, PBS, and I think Nathaniel can answer, and we'll go around, and Nathaniel's Free Columbia is very much about that question.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a great question. Coming from an economic studies, it's a major question. I mean, as you surely know, and I think all of us feel, while culture often gets the kind of backseat in our thinking and how we talk about economics, culture is the very leaven of all of our economies. And there's so many studies that show that, if we invest in culture and non-commodity styled relationships together, particularly education, of course, what that turns into in the real economy in 20 years, it's an investment that is like no other, right? But it's long-term investment, and it's kind of long-range thinking. And when you compare that to a lot of our thinking about investment right now, where we're always looking for a quarterly return in the symbol of profits, it's just a really different way to think. And Free Columbia, one of the things that has really inspired it is actually a kind of organizing of community culture that is kind of distinctive to the United States, which, like, for instance, this show is a great example. We have, for instance, in Columbia County, we have a great hands-on radio station in Hudson. And then we've got WAMC in Albany that we pick up. And those are free, and you may wonder, well, how much are they supported by tax donation? I mean, tax money from the state. Well, it's actually not much. Each one you would have to look at differently, because they both have very different funding structures, but they call on donations from the community to support the activity. And then they give away everything that they make freely. And this is, of course, something we're very familiar with radio. And it's become all the more interesting because, like, with the internet, you almost have to give things away because it's so easy to copy things and rely on gratitude to support yourself as a musician, or, it's a big question now. But Free Columbia has organized itself like that. And from a social science perspective, like, a dollar that is given out of solidarity, appreciation, and love is a very different dollar than one that is given out of a personal egotism and need, right? And you can see, if you're taking money in that's connected to that solidarity, it's different money. and goes a lot. It can go a lot farther, and it represents community relationships. And a lot of those same ideals, of course, are present in the current. And if anyone's interested in a particular, because that's one of the questions that led us to our research projects a couple years ago, you can go to freecolumbia.org, and there's that tab there that's called the Social Theory and Action tab. And there's actually a report related to the question of local economies and culture and monetary design that we wrote. And of course, the current is featured in it. And you can look it up for more. I've already said too much.
Yep, I'll make that information available for all of our listeners.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful. And I'm not sure if I mentioned his last name. This is Nathaniel Williams. Green, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kareen. I own a small farm, own and operate a small farm here in Columbia County called Retrograss. And one of the things that really interested me about Currents is it's kind of on the same line with some of my kind of other economic systems that I like to promote, like sliding scale. So at my farm store, I have eggs and milk at a sliding scale because something really true to me is true to my heart is that everybody should have access to good food, regardless of your income. And so Currents is just another way where people can, come to my farm, work hours, and then be able to buy food. So it's another alternative to getting access to, the best quality food that you can find around here. And also at the school, the Hawthorne Valley Waldorf School, I've been behind the lunch program initiative there, sourcing local food and also making that a sliding scale accessible food and lunch and snack program at the school. And the school is a socioeconomic diverse body, and it needs initiatives like that in order to give everybody the opportunity. So
beautiful. Thank you. And Roxanne, when I met you through the Piazza event, you signed up for the Current, you started using Currents, and last week Roxanne called me and said she met a farmer who may have a lot of onions to donate forward to people in need. And through Project Resilience, the Current has now given over 1,000 meals to the county. The county and United Way pay us a fair price for each meal. We've given over 1,000 meals, and then they pay it forward to all the people in our community who need it. And so when Roxanne came to me with this idea of onions, it's like our chef, who's a full-time chef, she runs Satisfy Hunger, and the website is satisfyhunger.org. She'll turn that into an onion jelly that can last for months. So I really appreciate you coming to us with that idea. What got you involved in Free Columbia in the first place?
The idea of the whole thing about the way he was doing money, that there was another way of doing money. I am the elder of a whole clan. Like there's like 300 people that I'm the elder of. And I'm saying there's another way of operating money. I need to be knowing that. And so I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn what he was talking about. And then this whole thing about money and culture, that's important. And how to invest money culturally is extremely important. And when he's talking about investing money with education, and a whole half of our family, my mother's side of the family, we're teachers. And so many of my sisters are teachers. And I'm just a teacher. That's just what I do. When I'm not, I'm retired and I'm just teaching wherever I go. I'm a teacher. And so all of this, I'm just sharing what I learned because it's what the community needs. And so that's why I wanted to know and say, this is something that we need. When I met Corinne and everything, the idea was how to do a unification of community, how you bring the community together, because this Columbia County is so fractured, economically and racially, and how do we bring it together? And economics was one of the major things, because the whole racial thing is really an economic thing. And so the base thing is economics and culture. And so I needed to learn what I could learn with that. And the more I learned about it, the more powerful it was. And so that's why.
Beautiful. Thanks, Roxanne. We also have here with us Lisa Damien, and when I met her last week, I really enjoyed how she mentioned how she's a biologist, and many things about money are like biology when you talk about ecosystems, microcosms. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Lisa.
Hi. Well, I also work at Hawthorne Valley. I work in a small program there called the Earth Program. And we have a small group of children and we're outside almost all day. We're working on the farm, we're working in the forest with them. And our program is, we're embedded in the Hawthorne Valley's larger education program, but we're still separate and get to make a lot of independent choices for how we budget. And one of our values is to have pay what you can as a way for the students who need our program to find us and receive services without being able, even if they can't afford it. And so I'm also really interested in the current, not just so that part of my salary could be paid with that through Hawthorne Valley, which I would really appreciate, but also so that families can find a way to use an alternate currency to pay part of their tuition demands. Because Hawthorne Valley is a school that's based on tuition, these are just the kind of struggles that come with that. Who pays? How is it paid? How is money raised? And it seems to me that allowing for a smaller economy within the county or within a portion of the state that lets a secondary economy build is a second level of wealth that people can benefit from and then also use to enrich the cultural life of the county and also have it possible for their children to have their educational needs met regardless of their ability to pay.
Very nice. That made me think of you, Kevius, how you came from Atlanta to Bard, and now you're focused on Kingston and work with the current. I think it's just exciting that you approached me with this food security project for Pankaki. Pankaki is a mostly Black and people of color community on the waterfront of Kingston. It's where those communities were pushed when urban renewal happened, which was actually urban removal of people of color. And they were pushed to an area that became a food desert. There's no small stores, there's no big stores, there's no stores. So we're working on a project together starting at the end of May, where we're going to bring our mobile kitchen down there. We're going to have consistent fresh produce and prepared meals. Kevius, tell us what made you interested in this area and why it seems like you might stick around. I'm not putting any ideas in your head.
No. So there is a lot of room. So I think I really love Kingston and the whole vibe of this area because you have a community that all together realize that, you know, there's something different and they all recognize that that different element that is missing that everyone possesses is we just need communal effort. So like everyone just has a goal and has a mission to make their community better. And there's so many amazing grassroots organizations, but from the economic perspective about integrating a local currency is that there are a lot of I don't want to say this in a harsh way, but a lot of problems that everyone recognizes the only way to get out of it is if the community comes together. And the best way the community could come together to see a return on that, speaking in economic terms, is if the whole community, despite, you know, where you are economically, despite where you are on the social ladder, if the whole community has a seat at the table. And the only way that is possible is through a local currency where, hey, everyone has an input in this economy. So what we want to do in Pankaki is go to a community where they're told, hey, you don't have a seat at the table, and give them a seat at the table. So through this store, we're not only addressing food insecurity, we're creating developmental opportunities, bus systems, after school programs, a lot of job opportunities from people who were told under our current economic system and the way we do things that these are opportunities that you have. So that's what really excites me. And it also excites me meeting you all to know that those are values that you hold too, that like the community are the ones who should be having a seat at this table. Not someone who's in it for economic profit and are disconnect from the culture element and the social element of the economy.
Nice. That actually reminds me of a conversation we were having before we hopped on this call. about convertibility of local currencies to dollars. And each community currency has a different model of how they're set up, and many create convertibility. We're trying to not have convertibility to prove that a mutual credit system like this, which the IRS calls it a barter exchange, they call it current trade credit. So this is all recognized by our government. But what's exciting is without convertibility, the current stands on its own as a currency. And it also is called a complementary currency because it complements the dollar. Our goal is to strengthen the dollar, not replace it. Because when my kids go to college, they might leave the state, I need dollars. When I go on vacation, I need dollars. When I pay my taxes, I need dollars. Dollars are valuable in many ways. But as we see right now, they could be vulnerable and fragile. And I think by what we mentioned earlier, the value still exists here. So how do we use exchanges, time banking, mutual aid, support, love? I noticed Nathaniel has dough on his hands still from making pizza. And so, like he said, that dollar that's valuable as a giving dollar over an earning dollar, he just gave us the gift of food. It's hard to put a price tag on that. It's even harder to put a price tag on the fact that he didn't even wash his hands. He was loving it. So curious. I know at some point we're going to touch upon our sponsors and advertisers, but I'm thinking toward the end we flash the websites of all of our sponsors and also Free Columbia. But, any questions or talking points you'd like to cover?
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that talking point that you just said and tying into Nathaniel's point of what it is to receive a dollar versus what it is to receive a current. And that goes into like the different views of human capital, right? Is you can look at human capital from the economic sense of like, hey, I'm investing in a worker. Or you can look at human capital and what Free Columbia does is you're investing in the creativity of a person. So I kind of want to go back into the research that you did on what you found investing in the creativity and like the person themselves and really shifting the gear to that focus in human capital. Like what did you find as far as that in respect to development in the future goes?
Let's see here, Shaq.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's again an awesome question with like you're really touching on a lot of profound like one of the things that I think in the future economics is going to have to become a lot more like philosophy, and it's become in the past it's actually trying to be modeled on a kind of almost like physics. It's become kind of dried out and abstract. And that's also one of the reasons that it's causing so many problems. One of the things that I guess just to keep it short for the context that we have, you know, one of the things if you look past the money, the current or the dollar, and you always say like when you have one, you're actually it's a symbol for a relationship between people. Then I think that's a question you can always ask yourself, like, what relationship is this a symbol for? If I buy a product, I'm entering into a relationship with people. Now, they may be in Columbia County, they may be in China, they may be in Pakistan, you know? I don't know where they are. I might know where they are if I'm, depending on how I'm shopping. Is that a good relationship I'm in with them? You know, and you see fair trade and organic bringing this to consciousness, the divestment movement, bringing this to consciousness, what's behind our money? Or as John Bloom once said, do I know where my money sleeps at night? You know?
Is that from RSF?
RSF, yeah.
Can you tell them what RSF is?
RSF is a social impact investment foundation in San Francisco. So one of the things that the shift that's needed is being able to see through money into the social cultural reality of what it represents. And there's a couple things that make that important. And one is that money can't buy you love, and it's meaningless outside of a context of a social economic context. And in Free Columbia, what we do is we try to separate our income from our gifts to the community, kind of like what I was saying with public radio. So we try to do things that are good, and then we ask for support to do those things. The money is just support. Why? So we can do good things in the community. So where's our attention? It's on the good things that we want to do together, not on the money, whether it's current or a dollar. And then I feel like when we're using a current or a dollar to work together to make things we want happen in the world, then we're doing good, right? We got to see through the money. There's this phrase that kind of wanders around, and I'm not sure of the source. It comes from I read it as an indigenous, I'm not sure, but it's something to the effect, only when all the water is polluted, all the trees are gone, and so on and so forth, will the white man realize that he can't eat money. And that may sound trite for some people, but when you really start to think about it, there's a real issue we have with a kind of almost fetish obsession with something that is disconnected from our everyday lives. And because it's disconnected and we have this obsession with it, it often plays out in destructive ways.
I just use this analogy with my wife. My wife and I have great conversations all the time. And this morning I said, it's almost like we've been drinking poison for all these years. Every time there's a recession or depression, we drink less of it, but we keep sipping it anyway. And we're like, I think if I drink a little bit of the poison and build up, it'll work this time. But Kevius is still with us. One thing I loved is what you just said about relationships, the relationship behind money. And I'm always thinking of slogans and new names for projects, and I have to stop naming things. But you gave me an idea for a slogan: inspiring better relationships. The current inspires better relationships because it forces us to not just be able to buy anything. Sometimes people are like, your spinach is like $1 more than at ShopRite. And well, what is that dollar worth? Why is it worth $1 more?
Yeah.
Because we're paying living wages, because we're not trucking across the country or from China. We're not flying these things in. We're inspiring a relationship with the farmer. And then it's like, it becomes difficult for people. We've heard feedback, well, I don't like the current because it's too hard to use. It actually forces us to slow down and think of how we shop. Think about our relationships.
That points towards the idol, the idol of convenience that is connected to our love of.
There's speaking to that relationship, and I want to hear Lisa's take on this. Is you all offered through your McRiches program a course called Anthropology as a Relationship. I think that is genius, considering that we're talking about engaging in the economy not as an individual but as part of a momentum. So I want to know, like, what is that shift in thinking, and why that is necessary not only today but for future generations, and how do we see that playing out, just acknowledging oneself as part of an entity and not just an individual.
Lisa, would you like to cover that?
I'm not sure how I would approach that question, but I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that in actuality, we are all embedded in something larger. There's no life on Earth that isn't contextualized by an ecosystem and by the diversity of the ecosystem around it. And human beings are not outside of the realm of nature. We're not, we don't operate separate from the laws that oversee nature. And so I think it's a lot of hubris to think that what we create as human beings can somehow stand against the actual laws and healthy function of the natural world. And because we keep trying to play that out, we're seeing destruction across the planet of forests, ecosystems, oceans, fisheries. We're seeing deserts where there were never deserts before. And so part of bringing ourselves as human beings back into the natural cycle of life involves us looking at the energetic exchange of currency the same way we look at the energetic exchange of nutrients in an ecosystem.
Beautiful. I never thought of it as nutrients moving.
that's incredible. And I was just having this conversation about what it is to develop an economy, right? It's like we usually go into a place and we see opportunity there, right? It's like, hey, I see a lot, I can put a building there. However, in the long run, as you said, that leads to pollution, that leads to, displacement, that leads to increased property value. Versus if you go into an economy, talk to the people, say, hey, where do we gradually see, and what do we gradually see happening in this lot? I think stimulating the economy in that way, where it's beneficial to every single party versus beneficial to the economic developer who's there for a profit, is just a shift in perspective that I greatly appreciate, and one that I see that if we take it to the economic level, it could avoid all of these things such as pollution and deserts in places we've never seen deserts, because we're actually listening to the environment, listening to the people that are there. So that's really powerful. Another concept that was introduced is art as capital. Can we touch a little bit on that? Because I just saw it mentioned under your social projects.
I think that's great, but I think Roxanne might have something to add to the last point.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
I'm saying, and that goes full circle back, because then the nutrient body, your body suffers from the lack of seeing that whole thing full circle. And then now you have this whole pandemic of a lot of the people who can't recover because their bodies aren't nutritionalized.
Right.
So that's a whole other half to your whole point, is that it's not coming back.
Nice. Yeah.
Well,
We need that flow.
Yeah, and I'd like to build on something I said that touches with what when Roxanne talked about being an elder in her tribe of people, and Nathaniel mentioned the economy in relationship to how things will change over generations. Trees do an amazing thing. Very large old trees. In the last years of their lives on the earth, dump a tremendous amount of resources through their root systems into all the surrounding trees, so that all of the smaller trees that would then fill in the gap when that larger tree falls have a boost. And that's going on continually. They're communicating with each other, they're feeding each other. And I think that, like in a redwood forest, a tree that's 800, 1,000, 2,000 years old, and then it drops. And the whole ecosystem feeds off of that tree for hundreds of years after that. And so I do think that part of what we can create when we think about local currencies and smaller economies are the ways that we can nourish the generations coming after us, rather than just seeing a parking lot and seeing a building lot and putting something up for an immediate gain. What does investment in 4 generations down the line look like? Because that's what a tree is doing. That's what the forest is doing all the time.
Wow.
No tree is growing just for itself. It's growing for the forest, in addition to what it takes for itself.
That reminds me of the pay it forward concept.
Yeah.
We incorporate that into our Satisfy Hunger campaign, and last September we started a catering company, which allows anyone to use 100% currents on catering. And we had a lot of nonprofit clients. We did big galas, board appreciation dinners, holiday parties, and so that allows the current to circulate and cycle like nutrients through a system. But we donated to 6 nonprofits at the end of our fiscal year last year, paying forward our excess revenue. We're not doing this to make money. We're doing it to support the community. So we're building nonprofit food models that are always paying forward.
Nice.
So last week was Giving Tuesday. We encouraged the current members to be generous and pay forward some of their currents. So we got 69 meals paid forward, 2 brunch boxes, 2 dinner boxes that include meals for 4 people for 3 nights. With recipe cards so that people can learn how to cook together. We got 3 50 current gift cards paid forward for our digital resilience market. And just yesterday, we started paying it back to the community. So I delivered 4 meals in Kingston out of the 69 that built up. So now we have 65 more to pay forward. People are so generous when you combine pay it forward with pay what you can. And so So in the tree example, that big tree paid a lot forward, and then
Yeah,
the little trees are like, well, I'll take what I need. And
Yeah,
I'll leave the rest
yeah.
though.
yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
I mean, we have no way of knowing how conscious it is on the part of the forest, but
Right.
we don't have a way to communicate that's an equivalent of that. But certainly,
This movie.
800 years of growth
Mm-hmm.
is tremendous, and much of that growth coming from what the sun offers. So no, I think it's a model that we should be striving for more.
I was listening to what you were saying about Kingston. I lived in Kingston for 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And so I understand what he was talking about the dynamics of Kingston around and the desert, or the area that he's talking about. I was calling Philmont a food desert, but it has a couple of food things, but his area has nothing.
Yeah. We're going to be starting that project at the end of May, and we're collaborating with the Farm Hub. Farm Hub is a 1,600-acre contiguous farm in Hurley, New York, just outside of Kingston, and the New World Foundation, which is supported with the Novo Foundation, bought this 1,600-acre farm from the Gill family, and the beauty of this farm, and they're going to help support our food security project, because the purpose of the farm is to feed people. Typically, it's 60% charitable food and 40% for sale. During COVID, they switched to 95% charitable and 5% for sale. So to have a farm like that with that much flexibility is a huge benefit for our community, and they want to help support this campaign. One thing that I've heard about them is they do research and development in a way no other farmer can. And you know, when you grow your food, you need to make money at the end of the year, or you can't grow it again next year. So when they first moved to the area, they said, let's make plum tomatoes. Let's find the best plum tomato in the world and make local ketchup, make local sauce. And then they found that Heinz and DuPont owns all the patents on the best plum tomatoes. And they said, let's grow every plum tomato in the world and see which one does best in Hurley. And so what farmer can afford to do that? They bought every plum tomato that's out there. They're hybridizing. They went organic from a highly sprayed sweet corn farm. And so the fact that they have the time to do research for us and our community is inspirational.
But that's culture right there.
Yeah.
Agriculture, all that research, all that,
Right.
because it's knowledge and technology there, yeah.
I never thought of the word culture in agriculture.
Yeah, maybe
Agriculture,
horticulture. It is art. I was
Yeah.
just thinking the other day, I'm
It is
so
art.
the way you trim your trees. I mean, that is art. The way you plant your plants. Just the other day that dawned on me. It's like, actually, that's my art. So
Yeah.
I grew up drawing and painting, and
That relates to Kivius's last point of art as capital. And we've been promoting this concept of the multiple forms of capital in livelihood. Every month we cover a different form of the 8 capitals, and when we cover all 8, we'll cycle back, because mostly what we know of as capital is the financial capital component, dollars and currents. Currents are financial capital. It's a form of money. Cultural capital is telling, let's say, a recipe that your Sicilian mom passed along for hundreds of years, right? Social capital is what I think all of us have in this room. It's when you are kind and you give favors and you help others, eventually comes back to you. So art as capital, Kivius, in what context were you talking about it? Through Free Columbia or just in general?
I was talking about it through Free Columbia, because on their website, I saw this amazing quote, and I'll just quote it. I know we're running short on time, but it says, money and capital cannot be an economic value. Capital is human dignity and creativity. And so in keeping with this, we need to develop a concept of money that allows creativity or art, so to speak, to be capital. Art is capital. So I think art is more of an extension of what the human innately does, whoever the individual human is, and really investing in that. Because I think when we talk about how we develop an economy or an atmosphere, is not, we're developing on what that person could do best within the equation that is given to them. Like, where do you fit best in this equation versus what do you bring as an element of this equation, which I think is something that a local currency is doing completely different. It's like, it's a difference from going to a company and applying as whatever position they have opening versus going to a company and says, here, this is what I'm best at. This is what comes natural to me. So let's develop an economy that addresses that, which is something that right now we're on the brink of, and we're fortunate enough to be a part of this movement. And one thing that I really look up to HVA, Hawthorne Valley Association, as you all are simply pioneers in a lot of your programs.
Definitely, it's a pleasure to work with Martin Ping. Every time you spend time with the director of Hawthorne, it's like you've met the earth and your soul, and he looks deep into your eyes, and he's so innovative that and maybe you would agree, when Martin speaks, it's like hearing a song, I think. I just love it. And that's what's beautiful about working with Columbia and this group is, like, I feel drawn to the inspiration of Columbia County and the movement that's happening here. I've often said, I think through my whole life, I'm not looking to get involved in a revolution. I'm looking forward to the evolution. Because revolutions go round and round. Evolution moves forward.
That's right.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
Yeah, and I really like the timing of that, you know, and finding out about you all, because you're approaching evolution in a whole different sense. It's not like I'm evolving as a person and seeing where I best fit. Is I am who I am because of every element around me. And applying that concept to money, I think is very, very important and very key. I have a question for Roxanne, and I know we're almost over, but as you mentioned, you're a native of Kingston. Where do you see Kingston going, like personally, from your experience?
Well, no, I'm not a native of Kingston.
Sorry, not native.
Kingston was very interesting because there's so many different sections. And I haven't been there in 4 years. So I'm not sure where it's doing now at all. But I know some of the politics of what's going on there. They're very much on fire, where of the people that I've been talking to and we've been listening to, they're still emailing me on their politics. My connection with Kingston now is you guys, which is exciting.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that Kingston is a city that had a rough century.
Yeah.
Because it went from the close of the D&H Canal and the ending of the railroads and one thing after another, and then finally the IBM firing 7,000 people in 1 week.
Yeah.
It's about 100 years Kingston has had a hard time. And I think it's experiencing a renaissance.
Yes.
And Hudson and Beacon, where we become the beacon of how to live well. And I've thought, since we got involved in the current and meeting people like you, like we're creating a movement that will be seen as an example in the whole world of how to be sustainable, how to have local food, how to go back to village lifestyle. Actually, we've done this before.
But that's what I'm excited about, is that we was talking about this before this whole COVID thing started.
Yeah.
And now we were already talking about it, and so now when you bring this thing back up, and see, we were trying to tell you.
People have been calling me a lot to say, "Oh, how did you know?"
Yeah, I think to touch on your point, Chris, is what we get the amazing opportunity to do here is as you said, a new chance to evolve. Like, we've been here before. We've seen industries grow inside of Kingston and then collapse because that question of what is the culture here was not answered. And that's a beautiful thing that we're doing with our Pankaki project, is we're going into a section of Kingston that was once, you know, this thriving business industry. Is like, where did they go wrong? And they didn't address the culture there, which goes outside of just the person. But let's look at the land. Let's look what's fertile here. Let's look at, you know, your proximity to natural resources. Let's extract those things to think about moving forward.
I think it was extraction that destroyed it. It wasn't the people that did anything wrong. It's an extraction model of wealthy people.
Yeah.
Here's an opportunity. Let's swoop in, take it all, and leave.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that using the economy as a source of gain versus like cultivation, which I think is a whole new direction that we're going in.
Exactly, and that's what's going on all around. They did it to Hudson. They sucked everything out of Hudson and turned it into some kind of Airbnb village with restaurants. And they're doing it to Kingston, all these different areas, but that's what they're doing. They're sucking different areas. I couldn't even speak to where Kingston is. They're not looking at the people. It's like the people are not even relevant. Except unto themselves, into their little pockets. But when you create a culture, then you have something. When you create a culture, that's what you need to do.
That's one of the reasons we developed a toolkit of engagement, because when you have engagement in a city, you slow down gentrification.
Yeah.
Some people don't understand gentrification, and I've heard, I think, mostly privileged white males say, "What's wrong with gentrification?"
Of course they say that.
Because they don't realize it's not money. It's not just money that came to town. It's monoculture that came to town.
Mm-hmm.
And a pushing away of something that existed already instead of an embracing. And so a toolkit of engagement in every party, everything that we do, everything we talk about, I think will prevent gentrification and strengthen our cities.
Yeah.
There's a group called NACA who help people who don't have money but do have who don't have a large income but do have an income to buy their house, even if they're on Section 8. And I can tell you about that program because I've been trying to tell people about it, because that helps make a root system going on in your town. As long as they have an income, the people, I've been trying to, if I can get a group of people together, they will come and do a conference on it.
Yes. Shoot me an email about that. Speaking of support group, I just wanted to mention radio again, because Nathaniel brought it up. Something that could be more than just a radio show or a radio station. It could be part of our culture. And Radio Kingston is now a nonprofit organization that's now 40 years old, but 2 years ago, I think, was purchased by the Noble Foundation to help get it on as its own nonprofit. Radio Kingston now has a community fund that makes up to $500 available for people who are struggling in Kingston. But it's an example of how media could be a supportive structure, not just, again, extractive. Fox News, Ted Turner, all these media moguls became extractive of our information, of our wealth. And so media actually has the potential to be regenerative. And so I just want to, how about we might have a couple minutes at the end, Kevius, if you could just keep talking and also show share the screen for Free Columbia, O Positives, Health Hotline, Kenco, and Saunderskill.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Okay. So we'll continue talking, and all you have to do is just flash those websites on the screen so people see, and also mention their websites as you find it. You said it's freecolumbia.org?
Yep.
Columbia with a U, right?
Yep.
We were working on getting a radio spot here through a makerspace before this happened. And we were trying to work with AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps to create Clubhouse and then do a radio spot through them. I don't know where that's going to go now. I wanted to get AmeriCorps to come in on this meeting.
Well, we'll be doing monthly meetings. I think in the evening we'll be having pizza. And there's the Free Columbia website. So people can go to freecolumbia.org for that. Let's now go to O Positive Kingston. Do a search for that. O Positive is a festival that happens every October in Kingston. You guys may have heard about it. It's a barter festival where artists show up and barter for healthcare. It's healthcare all weekend, as much as you want if you're an artist. And they just created this mental health hotline called Kingston Frontline Mental Health. For anyone who's working in essential services or stuck at home, you can call this hotline for free and just talk. It's, you don't have to have a mental health issue, but maybe you're stressed and you need to talk to someone. This number is available for people. One story I like to tell, and I'd also like to send my condolences to the Schoonmaker family, because we recently lost Kathy Schoonmaker. She was the wife of Dan Schoonmaker out of Saunderskill Farms in Accord. It's a 12th generation farm. So they've been farming since the 1600s, and they're the kindest people I've ever met. Kathy was, my sister and I recently compared her to either a butterfly or a pansy, where so delicate and beautiful and always just emanating kindness almost, you know. And we recently lost her, but it just made me think, but the matriarch of the family is 95 or 96, you know, and their kindness got them through 12 generations. They saw the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Great Depression, every war that family went through and thrived. And I think it's generosity and kindness that gets them through, because whenever I ask them for something, they donate. When I started my publication in 2010, they were the first advertiser. And usually when you sell an ad, it's like, it took me 6 years to get Adams Ferry Farm to say yes to an ad. Saunderskill said, yes. It was like an easy sell. I love that. And so Saunderskill Farms is now doing curbside pickup. And this is their ad that they run with us in our publication. They're doing curbside pickup on Route 209 in Accord. And it's a major bummer. I live in Kerhonkson in Ulster County, and it's a bummer because they close for 3 months over the winter. And it's like nowhere good to get coffee, no fresh bread. It's like, oh, I have to drive to Kingston. So now Saunderskill is open again, and we love the Schoonmaker family. Our final sponsor today is Kenco Outdoor Outfitters. They're over in Hurley, near the Farm Hub. And they are a recent current member who signed up, and I would highly recommend visiting if you have a lot of currents. I get all my clothing there, all my camp supplies. And in our digital resilience market, which is at hudsonvalleycurrent.org, you can order CBD hand sanitizer through us, but Kenco has a whole line of CBD products and elixirs and immune shine, ginger elixirs. So did you pull up Kenco yet? If not, everyone can find that at, I think it's at Kenco. Yep. Outfitter, and I think their website is at kenco.com. And I just want to thank all of our guests today: Nathaniel Williams, Roxanne Wilkins, Corrine, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name.
Boyce Howe.
Corrine Boyce Howe, and did I say that? Tao. And Lisa Damian. Thank you to our Philmont guests, and thanks, Kevius, for leading us through this wonderful hour.
Yeah, Kevius, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you for everything. Nice meeting you. I really enjoyed our conversation.
likewise.
Likewise, yeah.
See you soon.
Yeah.